Hey now, and welcome to the 31st episode of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, welcome back. But if this is your first time hearing us, well then welcome. I'm your host, Ruben, and as always, my co-host, Stan, is on the line. How you doing, man?
Doing great, dude.
Awesome. So this episode, our guest was Lysergic Yogi, who is a member of our Discord family and our Help Find the Others community. And now I can't remember. I know he's one of our more active participants on our server, but is he one of the longest tenured as well?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like it. I would say definitely before like episode 5 of the podcast, he joined, and we kind of just been going back and forth ever since. Like you said, he's definitely one of the most active.
Yeah, and we've had some late night chats with him on the voice channel, and
Yep.
Share funny links and everything. He's got a great sense of humor and a really good outlook on things. And in this episode, we talked mainly the big chunk of it was talking about meditation and why and how we try to incorporate that into our lives. And none of us are experts, but it was good to talk to him. I think about how he really has done it every day for quite some time, and I know you and I would like to get to that point.
Yeah, and it was just a perfect listen for, I'd say, somebody that wants to get reintroduced to the practice or is just brand new to it as a whole. Either way, you'll get something out of this, and hopefully it pushes you towards keep doing that routine every day like he is.
Yeah, and we touched on some other topics and stuff, but it was mostly a nice informal conversation between some people that are familiar with themselves, at least through our little social media thing that we got going. So I hope you guys enjoy Lysergic Yogi. All right, so thanks Yogi for coming on. For people that don't know, you're Lysergic Yogi from our Discord server, and I definitely thank you for coming on the podcast, but also thank you for being one of the more active people on our Discord with conversation, and also you're frequently on the voice channel, chatting with people and stuff like that. And so I really appreciate you being active in our community. But everyone kind of likes to start out our podcast episodes with talking about kind of how you found psychedelics at the start of your psychedelic journey in your life. So why don't you just tell a quick story about that?
Oh, for sure, man. First of all, I just want to thank you for having the Discord and bringing us all together. Shout out to everybody on the Discord. You guys are all seem like really cool people. But to start things off, I just about most of us on the Discord, actually, I grew up in a middle class Christian based family. A lot of the scriptures and stuff that was pushed on me was a lot of really fear based stuff. So I was really anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety growing up and stuff, real anxious person. And throughout, that was like pretty much 25 years of my life. Like I didn't start this, this path that I'm on now until like 2016. So when I was 25 years old, basically, is when I started this. So most of my life, I was very anxious. But basically, it all kind of happened by accident, really. I mean, I started dabbling with psychedelics when I was about 18, more recreational style, didn't really know much about the spiritual side of things, and just kind of, tripped out, had fun, smoked weed all throughout high school. But yeah, I just had some mushrooms when I was 18, and then I didn't see them again for another, 3-4 years, and then got some more and used them recreationally then too. And then I didn't mess with psychedelics at all for a long, long time. And I just started kind of becoming more and more depressed. The whole narrative that was sculpted into me growing up, with the whole, I'm going to go to heaven. And I was very judgmental and just kind of just a real toxic. I cherry picked the Bible, I abused drugs. I used video games as an escape. I treated my fiance, well, like shit, pretty much. And it wasn't until, my daughter was about 1 year old, which had been back in 2016, was when I started listening to Alan Watts a little bit, which stemmed from Psych Substance. I'm sure you guys are familiar with him on YouTube. And he's the one who kind of opened my eyes to, because he starts, he just lays down, the actual facts of how psychedelics aren't really that harmful, and just like kind of really changed my perspective on that. So then it kind of sparked my interest in psychedelics again, as well as introduced me to Alan Watts, all like within the same time period. And started out with, a few Alan Watts lectures, and just his lectures, man, like he was like my number one when it came to like the catalyst, and I still always go back to him. He made me drop my story, basically, like the 25 years of anxiety ridden shit, and just like I just let go of my beliefs. I just started having doubts after doubts, and it just sent me into a big, a big a big period of collecting myself, basically picking up some pieces, deciding what I want to be and what I don't want to be. And at the same time, like all this all happened within like months of one another. I started just watching some spirituality videos, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with actualize.org, but Leo on there, he has a video called meditation and how to do it, basically. And he just goes into why meditation's important, and he just like talked about how you should start a daily practice and never miss a day. And so I did, and I still have never missed a day, and I don't plan on it, because it's just helped me so much. And it took a while, but it just started completely changing me the more I did it. And like I had several, awakening experiences. And while these awakenings were coming on, I finally got my hands on LSD for the first time. And it was definitely like, that is like the biggest life-changing psychedelic for me. It like, while all this stuff was unfolding with meditation, and then piling that on top of it, I had just some beautiful, life-changing just periods of just letting pieces of myself that no longer serve me go, and just seeing things how they really are, paying attention closer to reality, and letting reality show me the way things are, and just diving real deep into Hinduism, Buddhism, little bit of even, looking back at Christianity and stuff, and actually being able to understand, like when I was a Christian, or claimed to be a Christian, I didn't understand a damn thing the Bible said. But like now, after these experiences and stuff, they gave me like just a different lens to look at it. And it actually makes, a lot of the passage actually makes sense to me now. And so yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's really cool how, that's such a common story that, so many of us share, in that you can watch psychedelic videos on YouTube and everything, and there's people that are attracted to the out of this world, like simulation theory, alien encounter kind of sci-fi type of stuff that can be discussed with psychedelics and everything like that. But it is those things that those conversations with psychedelics that push people towards the self-growth that involves practices like meditation or learning from our previous teachers like Alan Watts or Terrence McKenna or anyone like that had these lectures, that I think the podcasting has era that we're in now is kind of similar to that, but it's the learning from the people that had the philosophy down in that era of just like giving talks, and they're recorded and stuff like that. Like, it's pretty cool that psychedelics bring people back to those things, and that's aside from psychedelics too. It's like, you don't meditate with psychedelics every day, but you started meditating every day, or whatever. And it's this like lasting impact and sparking just, personal growth, in our everyday life, and I think that's just really cool. Like, I love talking about all that stuff with you and everyone else on the Discord, because like, that's what it's about, like there's so much of the psychedelic culture. It's just like, if you pay attention to the comments, is like, shut up, get to the trip report, and it's like, well, I mean, like maybe the trip report's like, if that's really crazy, like, yeah, that's a cool thing to tell that story or whatever. But telling the story of like, what did you gain from the trip is almost more interesting, and like, so often does that involve the things you were talking about, whether it's doing meditation or yoga or a healthier diet or whatever. It's great that we've kind of found these kindred spirits that like think of that as the most important aspect of all this, or at least something that's interesting enough that it deserves just as much discussion.
For sure, man. Yeah. And just how like Eastern practices and just spiritual practice in general, and how they tie into psychedelics, and how I found them both simultaneously at the same time. And like during the time, like the summer of 2016 is when it was like all going down, and like it was just blowing my mind how when I go into these LSD experiences and stuff, how just similar it was to deep meditative states, and how it was so similar to just even the random awakenings I was getting sober. Like that was happening to me sober too during this time, and just super interesting. Like it's just I don't like at the time I was on YouTube and I just was wondering why nobody was talking about the correlation of the two. Like you have the group of people who talk about psychedelics, and then you got the people who are into the Eastern religion, but they don't ever like come together. Or at least they didn't at that time. I'm sure they might be more now if you dig deep enough, but at that time it wasn't, and it was like blowing my mind. Like it felt like I was the only one, that discovered this. At least where I live, like nobody is into this shit around me at all. So that's why I really love the Discord, because it gives me that outlet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's such a common thing, and whether or not it's where you live, it just could be your situation. Like I believe that your immediate family at least is okay and knows what you do, but there's so many people that it's not even like their neighbors or it's like they have to hide their discussions and their activities from
I mean,
their wife,
I definitely do that. Like not my wife, or but like my mom and my dad. I think my dad might know, I partake in cannabis, and my mom probably does too, because I talk, about it and all the medical discoveries and stuff with her. And I'm not like, if she ever brings it up, I'll be like, yeah, I do. It's not a big deal. But yeah, psychedelics is just having kids, and I just not ready to come out all the way about that with just everyone, you know what I mean? Just until it becomes more normalized, because I mean, shit, CPS can just kick your door down and just take your fucking kids and lock you in a cage. So, not about that. So,
yeah. I mean, that's the damn shame, to where, CPS isn't going to come if you were prescribed, 3 different antidepressants and anxiety medication, and you're sitting there popping pills all day. Like, CPS, wouldn't care about that because that's the medicine you're taking, and it's like, but if you're trying an alternative medicine to take care of anxiety and depression, like if you're microdosing, if it got out there or someone wanted to fuck with you and reported you that, you were microdosing mushrooms around your kids, like that, they would, come fuck with you over that, and I mean, it's a damn shame. And, part of the whole idea with the podcast, and when I started a YouTube channel and all that, is like, not talking about it is worse than being like, I can't talk about it publicly in my, direct sphere of influence, and so, like, that's the thing, is like, we all together have to broaden our sphere of influence and use the tools that, are available to us through technology with the internet, and that's where the Discord server and in social media in general, and YouTube and podcasts and all that come into play. Is that, like, we have to still be careful about it, but we also still have to talk about it,
exactly. And it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, for sure. Yeah.
Like,
get real torn over that sometimes.
Right. Like, I should be able to, like, go knock on my neighbor's door next door and be like, hey, I heard you guys are having marital problems. Here's some doses, that should fix her up,
That'd be so cool.
But
hey,
instead,
I grew these for you.
Yeah. But instead I have to, do a YouTube podcast Discord thing and hope he finds his way there, like, that's, that's kind of where we're at with everything. But
yeah, it's a shame, man. It makes you feel so good too. Like, a guy that I work with, he's a younger kid. He just moved up here, and because his dad lives up here, and his dad, he hasn't seen him very much in the last decade or whatever, and so he's up living with him now. Well, he got a girlfriend here at my job, so now he's just like with her all the time and like never visits his dad. Well, I grew some mushrooms, and I made some of that blue honey, and I've been, I don't feel like I need to trip anytime here soon, and I'm just kind of, uh, hurting on money, so I sold him a little bit of honey, and him and his dad fucking took it, and they actually like had a bonding thing, so it like made me feel good, you know what I mean? Like, they actually got to bond, and it was because of me, and I decided to grow them, and because I decided to grow them, it created that, I like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard several stories of that too, like, was it? Oh, this is our last episode. Our guest had given somebody some mushrooms, and like, they ended up calling a friend they hadn't talked to in forever and talked for like 3 hours, and it's like, it has that, like, and it's not just mushrooms too. I mean, I felt that way the last time I took acid, where, it just has this like bond building, social, like, connection, need for like positive connection, and healing of past, bonds, and or broken bonds, and, like, friends that lost touch and were mad at each other over something, it makes you want to be like, I forgive it, and whatever, and reconnect and talk and say you're sorry. And like, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, that doesn't sound like something that should be illegal, yet it is, and it doesn't sound like something we shouldn't be able to talk about, yet we're not supposed to be able to talk about it. And it's just a damn shame,
Yeah.
Yeah. What, the blue honey, is that where you just grind up the mushrooms and put them in the honey, or is there?
Yeah. And then you let it kind of just sit for they call for at least 3 months, but the longer they sit, the more it seeps into the honey, and the more the honey itself gets, stronger. And then sometimes it says it can turn it blue. So, but mine wasn't really turning blue or anything, but as I say, it can. But yeah.
Huh. You haven't taken it yet, though?
No, I haven't. I was gonna let it sit longer. It's only been 3 months, but
yeah.
But also, I wanted to get into when I was talking about my the meditation and all that psychedelic, just how I would just over time letting go of parts of my old self and going through the motions, like any sort of resentment that I would have over situations in the past, I would kind of revisit them and just accepting parts of our past, just pure acceptance, like to the point of like almost as if you chose it, and then acknowledging that you're going to let it go, and then letting it go, as well as just practicing being present, nonstop present. I would say that was like, and I stumbled across this all by accident. I didn't actually like intentionally do this. I was just listening to spiritual teachers and meditating all the time. But going through this process, I really think that was the key to really alleviating, my anxiety and my depression. Like, I mean, I don't get really depressed at all anymore. So I would say it completely healed my depression. But as for anxiety, I still suffer from that from time to time, but it is so much more manageable. Like before I took acid, I was on SSRIs and just depressed as shit, man. Like, it was rough, but yeah. And yeah, so that's what when we were talking about in the Discord about the anxiety and depression, I think that was the key, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, did you like find through meditation and like looking deep within, I mean, did you find a root cause for the anxiety depression, or you just found a reliable way to get over it?
I'd say the first one. I'd say visiting moments while I was being raised, situations like that. But there was no like one big event, that like was super noticeable, like that I let go of, that I just kind of felt like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. It was more like a bunch of little ones for me personally, and I mean, everybody's just going to be different. And I just feel like, the more resistance you have to this practice in general, more than likely the more trauma you had when you were younger or in your past in general.
Yeah. Well, I know, like for me, and obviously there's all sorts of different causes and forms that anxiety and depression could take on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got genetically passed on too. Yeah.
Right. But I know for me that psychedelics and therapy help me like just kind of create new strategies for first off, being aware of what's going on when you are having an anxious moment, having a depressed moment, being aware of yourself to stop and look at your thoughts, look at your feelings.
Don't react to them. Just
and
watch
let them go. And that's what meditation has taught me, is just to be like, that's just something flushing through the pipes of my mind right now.
That's the key. That is the key.
And so like that's what meditation helped me with anxiety and depression. And I definitely attribute that to the psychedelic culture, because I don't think I would have got into meditation without the psychedelic culture, without at least the people, I've met through the psychedelic culture, and people that I'm like oh man, that guy's really got his shit together. He's really cool. Like he has a really good outlook on things. What is he doing? I'm not doing. Oh, he meditates all the time. You know, and there's been so many people like that that I've been like, yeah, but then I'm not going to meditate. You know, whatever. I don't have time. Yada yada yada.
Yes.
But it is a psychedelic culture that brought me to that path to where I haven't been the past couple of months, and honestly, that's what I miss the most about like before I started my job is like not doing that. So I definitely want to get back into that routine even more than I want to get back to going to the gym. Like that's the one thing I miss. But also, you know, going to like actual cognitive behavioral therapy. One thing through a year of doing that I realized is like you said, there isn't one like moment of trauma in my life that would have caused me to have self-doubt and anxiety and depression. It's just a history of built up like using the wrong strategy to deal with stuff that just like, you know, builds up basically like scar tissue on your ego or whatever. And
Yes.
and it makes it made me or makes me, I'm not gonna say I'm, you know, over having any anxiety or depression, but uh it's like social anxiety that just becomes everything else to where I'm worried about like personal relationships and like I overthink everything. And like there's no trauma to cause that to happen. That's just like I never learned the right way to deal with personal relationships. And I deal with them in a very anxious way for both myself and my friends and family, you know. And that's just kind of like between that therapy of helping me deal with those situations and the meditation to help me deal with like my internal awareness and how present I am and just, you know, just clearing out the cobwebs once a day. You know, psychedelics just brought me to that point. It's like I obviously will do psychedelics again plenty of times in the future, but they almost brought me to that point to where I could say, yeah, psychedelics cure my depression. And then if someone was like, are you going to do them again? I could be like, probably not, you know, like I don't think I'd like need them for that reason going forward, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. I totally get you there.
Yeah.
Can relate.
Now, when I can't remember like what we've talked about dosages and stuff, but like with acid, you do pretty high dosages, don't you?
I haven't had any real high doses lately, but back when I got it, um, I would do, I started at like 100 mics my first time, but I've gone all the way up to 330. That's the highest I've gone. I haven't really felt the pull to go much further than that personally because I get a lot of really uncomfortable vasoconstriction and sometimes some stomach cramping, like the higher I go.
Yeah.
So I 330 was pretty much like there was a point, later on, like on the come down where I had to like completely lay down and just like wait out this stomach cramp that lasted about an hour. So I don't know if it was just, some not so clean acid or what, but mainly in the 200 range primarily. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but in 2016 when I started meditating and stuff, I was dropping acid every weekend that summer, that whole summer. It put me in several Satori-like states. I got just so heavy into, like, I was just meditating all the time, nonstop. And
yeah, I definitely think acid is more conducive for the meditation than
you agree with
mushrooms.
that too, then?
I do. I think for me, it comes down to, and I always say this, that like mushrooms, there's like a teacher kind of, you know, like it's there's more of a sense of I don't know, another spirit or whatever. And that, you know, I view LSD as a chemical that is, for whatever reason, I mean, there could be cosmic reasons it came into existence for humans and stuff like that. But other than that, I think it is, enhancing our brains, and so it makes sense that if like, and it's like the ultimate nootropic. I think we called it in one podcast. Obviously it's a drug and it has euphoria involved and visual alteration and all of those things, but I think a lot of it that goes on in the trip part of it is, like you said, that state that people that have been practicing meditation and gone very deep, like they get to the same state because it's unlocking the same stuff in your brain. It's just kind of a cheat code to do that, and doing like I can't do like the silent meditation. My brain just goes a little too crazy. But doing the guided meditation I did on acid this summer or this spring or whatever, that, it was, well, I guess, Stan had a similar kind of experience on mushrooms. So, maybe it's not, maybe it's the set and setting more than the substance, but,
I think dosage definitely matters too.
Yeah. It's getting that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Which again, with LSD, I think is easier to do,
Yeah.
I think it's more accurate if the dosing of your source or whatever, but and having that intention to meditate, like I guess I've just never done that with mushrooms, so perhaps I don't have all the data to make my conclusion, but I just always, I feel more like with mushrooms, like I'm a little bit more scared that they're going to take control. Like I'm scared of the mushrooms if I'm having a bad time, not necessarily a bad trip, but the fear or the, bad vibes start coming in. I'm afraid of the substance with mushrooms, to where with acid, I'm like afraid of myself. I always consider like a bad trip on acid is like madness, like just like crazy, can't figure out what the fuck's going on and whatever.
Is that from all the propaganda?
No, I think it's
or is that just like from your experience?
Your brain just overactive, and I think I don't know. But every time I've had a bad time on mushrooms, it's like I'm just afraid of them. Like specifically.
Adam from Psych Substance puts it really well. He says like mushrooms is like being strapped on the back of a rocket and it's just taking you wherever the hell it wants to take you and taking you where you probably need to be. But acid is like you're in the cockpit and you can kind of steer like where you want to go.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
At least for me, that's how it is. I mean, I've heard so many mixed reviews.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But Stan's right. The right dose of mushrooms can be conducive to meditation and stuff like that.
Which is hard to pinpoint.
It is. Like, I mean, I just got done with the microdosing study.
And, how'd that go?
I mean, it's all right. It reaffirmed my idea of like a regimen is not the way to go.
I agree with that too.
It's microdosing is a take as needed. And I think you should take a perceptual dose, like a low perceptual dose. I don't think there's much benefit to like, I took a microdose, but I don't feel it. Like, I don't know. And I think that's maybe what the studies will show. I'm not real sure. But the thing that was interesting to me is that I only guessed the days that I took an actual dose because it was blinded to where there's a placebo pill in there. And I only guessed the day I dosed 50% of the time. But like the first week, I was like right on. And I was like, oh man, this is too much. And the days that I was scheduled to take it weren't good days to take it. And it was just like terrible. But I was right that those were the microdose days. And then the next week was all placebos. And I felt like I had taken it and was upset about it. And I was also very confident that I had dosed and I hadn't. And then the next week that I did, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but I think it was the third week was a dose week again, and I had the wrong days. Like the days that I thought I was microdosing, I wasn't, and then the days that I wasn't. And then the fourth week was all placebos, and I guess that right. Like I wasn't doing it. So like it's just weird. Like and they're all those pills, whether they're a placebo or not, were all weighed out the same. And there's no way for me to tell. And I still, it was just kind of, some days were weird, even if, and I didn't take anything else. Like I was pretty strict about that and not taking kratom or, I didn't take anything other than coffee. I think there was a couple days I took the caffeine and L-theanine. But like I waited for that to kind of run its course before I did the microdose. But yeah, I didn't do any other drugs, so there wasn't anything like else going on. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird that like your brain dose doesn't really matter. Like your brain matters more. And so there were days where I was, stressed out, and then stressed out that I had to take this pill and it might be a microdose and it might fuck with it. And then, oh, sure enough, it was fucking bad time. I had a bad time. And then when I find out, I actually didn't take anything. But I was like convinced.
Yeah, man.
I was convinced that I took a microdose and it was too much, and I was angry about it, and confirmed my view that like you should microdose like on a good day where you're ready to do it and stuff like that. And I didn't do anything other than take some lion's mane,
Dude, that's crazy. That's the first thing I did was when you said that you got the results, and because you were so adamant on a couple of those days, that you dipped into the microdosing capsule. But but it actually confirms what Balazs said when we had him on, who was the one of the creators of the study and one of the scientists running it, was just how powerful the placebo is. And, that's just that's a nod to meditation right there,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just how I guess there's never really like a being in full control of your mind, but having that sense of control of your mind is just so powerful and important.
Yeah. He referenced like the studies in the 60s with LSD where they were giving like 100, they were trying to like give full on, 100 microgram dosage, and people that received a placebo like had full on trips.
That's so crazy.
And didn't have any LSD and were like acting like they were having visuals and everything.
Yeah. That's nuts, man. I just listened to Duncan Trussell's latest podcast episode, and he had on an author that wrote a book about this, I guess, philosopher. I don't know his full title, but his whole idea was, his name was Neville Goddard, and his whole idea was that it's kind of manifestation, that we our mind is so powerful that we create our own reality. And
it's 100% true.
Yeah. And it
really is.
And how he like put the idea out was just ran these tests with people that were anybody could do wherever they are. And it was just think of something that you wanted to resolve, or just think of something that's in your upcoming future and think of the outcome that you desire. Nothing extreme like winning the $1 million lottery ticket or any of that stuff, but simple things like me and my good friend got in a tiff, and I hope that's resolved, and this is the best case scenario of it being resolved. And what you'd have people do is, during their meditation or during their morning practice, even if it's just reading the newspaper and drinking coffee, think about that event, that resolution, to the most detailed specifics, and go through it in your mind. Meaning, like, if that means calling your friend and going to get food, think of eating the food, think of the smells you'll be smelling, and all of this. And that practice like put all these action into people's lives. And his idea was that your physical body will do everything it can to make that idea a reality. And I thought his like work was extremely powerful, and it actually got me back into like thinking more and more about meditation and doing it more frequently.
Yeah, just like letting go, and just the more you let go, the more it just seems like you're just like your body does kind of just do everything for you. It's crazy. Like as long as you just stay out of your own way, as Alan Watts puts it.
Yeah.
No, I've done some guided meditations that are, you know, well, I don't know if it's visualization where like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's
That's
necessarily,
the word.
yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a mantra, but like, it's like, it has you say like, people like me, people, like that kind of stuff. It sounds so cheesy,
Yeah.
but like sitting there and you just keep saying what they're saying. And after like 15,
It's like reprogramming your subconscious mind.
right.
You know, you
And
just
yeah. And after 15 minutes, like the first 5 minutes, you're like, I'm such an idiot. This is stupid. I hope, I'm glad no one can hear me sitting here saying these stupid affirmations over and over. But after like 10 or 15 minutes, you go on complete autopilot and you're still saying these things out loud, but you're not thinking about doing it. It's just like breathing. And you go into that mode that Stan, that you were talking about in your trip of like just kind of going through everything and this voice just kind of fixing stuff and like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you can every now and then be like, oh, I'm still saying these things, but like you're not thinking about it. It's total autopilot with these affirmations. And like, who knows what that's doing to your subconscious and everything like that. Like it seems to be super effective. I listen to ones that are all about, like positivity and positive thinking. And like, I mean, it's worked, and I ended up getting like a, killer job, and like my, relationship with my kids is a little better. And like all these like other things are falling into place. And I don't know, I can't say it's not because of the meditations I was doing this summer, that were all about like positive thinking and, attracting money and like all these, like, I just go through Spotify and like, just see these like visualization, affirmation, mantra, whenever I see something like that for positivity and success and all of these things, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But it's the same process every time of just like repeating this over and over, but then it just turns into autopilot. And so like, I think those are really good meditations. Do you do the just silent meditation sitting there?
I've done several different practices, but that is definitely my go-to. Is just I just started like I was telling you earlier, like, or no, I don't think I did tell you, but how you were talking about how you were slacking in meditation. I've actually been slacking too here lately, and I've been trying to, like, I've been meditating every day, like I said, but I haven't like really like put a whole lot of effort into it. I've been like really, falling into a lot of the, distracting myself a lot type of patterns and stuff like that. So I'm actually just like getting back into the practice again more. And how I start doing it is I'll do a closed eye and an open eye, and they're both. I just do this basically the same thing with both of them. But the closed eye, I'll stare at one focal point, in the darkness of my eyelids, and I'll just sit there and I'll focus on it, and then you'll kind of notice that your mind will start chattering. And when your mind starts chattering, your eyes will start going off from where you're staring. Bring it back. Your mind starts talking, your eyes will start going away. Bring it back. Your mind will start talking, your eyes will start moving. Bring it back. And just keep bringing it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. And then like the eye open one that I do, same thing. And this is actually, if you know of anybody with ADHD or ADD, this is a really good practice that you can, like, as long as you practice this, like your ADHD and shit can be like alleviated a lot. But you just have a candle, you light it, and you just stare at the flame and you do that same practice. Try to kind of have it, at, I think it's like in Buddhism, they say like a 45-degree angle or some sort of angle to where you're kind of looking not straight down, but not straight ahead, but kind of like in between. Kind of have to try to have the flame like right there, and then just do the same thing. Bring your vision right back to the candle, and it just increases your focus. And like the more your focus builds, the more you can focus on the silence. And then like after you get really good at those two things, then you start bringing it to the silence and doing it by sound and not vision. Like I start out with vision, and then I'll move on to the sound, and just the sound of silence. And just bring it back to the sound of silence, and bring it back to the sound of silence. Every time your mind tries to distract you, you bring it back. You bring it back. And the more you do this, the more your focus just like is crazy, and the less chatter you get, and just the more present you become. And I honestly, I've tried so many practices. This one is just like my go-to because it helps me so much. Like, so much. I love it. But I've done another one that I like a lot. Actually, I just did it today for the first time in a long time. Is kind of incorporate a little bit of Wim Hof in the meditation practice that I just told you. And I was like fucking vibrating, man. It was crazy. Like, I don't know if you guys have done like a long Wim Hof and actually feel that like tingling and that vibration all throughout your hands and shit like that. I felt that feeling. I felt that feeling on mushrooms before, and I've heard it's similar. Like, this is where it's really interesting to me how it all ties in, because you hear people talking about that buzzing you get before you enter the DMT realm. That, like that sounds almost like silence. If you're like getting into these deep meditations, if you listen to silence long enough, you'll get like ringing in your ear. That sound. Like, I've never done DMT personally, but like when I hear people try to, imitate it and stuff, it's that same frequency, and it's similar to the same frequency as singing bowls. Yeah, and it's super interesting, man. Super interesting.
Yeah. I start to get that whenever I try silent meditation. I start to get that, and then like, I don't know if it's the default mode network or what, but then like, unless I'm on a microdose or like in a float tank or, supplementing it. I'm talking about if I'm trying to do silent meditation, stone sober, middle of the day, sit there, I do everything you're doing, except I can't do open eye. Like, I'd just be sitting there looking around the room. I just have terrible focus, I think, is part of the problem. But doing closed eye is like, that's it. The sound of silence like starts, it becomes thought, like just an avalanche of thought. Like, it starts as a noise, and then it just becomes like, hey, you didn't pay that bill. Hey, the grass is getting too long. And like, it's just like everything that my ego thinks I should be doing, it throws at me at once. And it's like, well, if you're just fucking sitting there, you lazy bastard, here, think about this shit, but it starts.
It's normal though, man.
I know, but it starts as that noise, which is what's weird. Cause like, I'll focus on my breath, and it starts as like, like I start trying to like block out the actual noise that is there. But then once I realize there isn't any noise, it starts becoming a noise, and then that becomes thought. And so that's where like I'm at with guided meditations and doing either the mantras or just like kind of the, story kind of things that they're just kind of talking and it's in the background or whatever. The other thing that I've tried, and I started trying to do this right before I stopped meditating a couple months ago. And I got this from, do you know who Rick Rubin is?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
There was like a show on, dude, he's produced probably, I don't know, every song you've ever heard. I mean, it's like, he started with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC. And then, I mean, he's done so many metal albums, and it's like almost every good classic metal hip hop album. If you look it up, you're like, oh, Rick Rubin's the producer. That's cool, you know. The Red Hot Chili Peppers and like Mars Volta, Danzig. I mean, Johnny Cash. It's just the list of artists that have worked with him are insane. But anyway, he there was a like 3 or 4 part miniseries on HBO about him, and it was a mixture of like him and his philosophy and how he tries to like bring new artists up and like get them to be really deep creative people by sharing his philosophy and stuff like that. And it creates these awesome albums just by getting them, at least in that moment of time that he's working with them, to like see his point of view, his philosophy. Well, it also, like every episode, half of it kind of talks about his childhood and what led him to be and look at the world the way he does, which eventually led him to be this super, focused, important record producer. Well, like when he was like 10 or so, he had anxiety so bad that he didn't want to go to school, and his mom took him to the doctor. This is probably in the 70s or so. And they were like, well, we could put him on medication. And his mom at that time was like, I don't want to put him on medication. I heard that stuff's bad, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, you could try transcendental meditation. And so he did that. And like, he's meditated every day. I mean, this guy's 70 now. Maybe, well, not 70, but in his 60s, I think. I'm not real sure. I'd have to look it up. But he has meditated every day since he was 10. And
nice.
And like, I mean, he's super cool. Like he believes in all these like vibrations and energies in the world. And I imagine he's gotten into psychedelics. I've never heard him talk about it, but I mean, the dude is legit woke as fuck, right? And he walks around barefoot all the time. He meditates on the ground, like on dirt. Like he has this belief that like you should be in contact with the dirt as much as you can, because the earth has like a energy and a vibration to it that you have to tap into in order to meet your potential. And I don't know if it's all I haven't researched transcendental meditation, but I was just kind of like trying to do what he does, and it's where you like hum like the frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's what you do. Yeah. And dude, it's trippy as shit. Like if to talk about the noise that comes from silence or a DMT trip or something like that, like just going, and like, but it's so easy to focus on that and play with it. Like, I mean, well, you could almost teach yourself to sing because you sit there doing that for the first couple minutes, trying to get the right pitch and match it to the sound of silence and sit there going, but the same thing happens is as you're focusing on that, you're not thinking about the bills. You're not thinking about the lawn. You're thinking about this pitch. And once you get to that same point where matching that pitch and you do match it, whatever you're trying to match it to, it becomes an autopilot, and you're all of a sudden there. You're on that plane that everyone's trying to get to with meditation of, the now. And I only was messing with that for like maybe a week or two, but I think that's what I'm going to try to get back into. And I don't know if that's like what transcendental meditation is, or if it was just an aspect he added into that. I guess I need to like read about that and read some strategies and skills for that. But just doing that, the Om hum, and doing that, he says, I think he was working with some hip hop artist, and I can't remember who, and he was showing them how to do that. And he was like, 2 times a day for 15 minutes will change your life if you do that. And like, then they, went on to the next segment. But that's an interesting strategy for meditation that like I hadn't really. It again, just like the affirmation sounded so cliche to sit there and go, but like I totally, after trying it for a couple weeks, like I totally get why that's this thing that's been out there that we, attribute to, the hippie yogi kind of meditator thing. But there's a reason that technique exists in meditation. And I don't know. That's definitely where I'm going to go back to instead of the Spotify playlist.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing, though. If you think about it, you're just bringing your focus back to that single point of whatever it is you're doing. The mantra, the om. It's just bringing it back. Or I choose silence. Or I've done different ones where I have like a fan going in my room, and I just bring it back to the sound of the fan. Bring it back to the sound of the fan. Bring it back to the sound. You could do it with all kinds of different things. I think I'm not for sure on this, but I'm pretty sure though, like all those little techniques of just bringing your focus back to one focal point is all considered transcendental meditation, because eventually, as you keep bringing the focal point back, it's almost like a slow separation from your narrative. Like if you keep doing it, every time your mind keeps trying to lure you in and you just keep denying it over and over and over and over and over and over and over, it becomes like a habit, and then you slowly become more of the witness of the character instead of the character. Does that make sense? Like the chatter. So like the more you do it, the less pull the chatter has on you. Yeah. And then the less you react. Like that's a big problem. We all react to things or overreact. And that's, when you practice that, you stop reacting and you just watch it and you be like, oh, and then you can address the problem or whatever in a calm manner.
Yeah. Well, it's all about focus, and it's so interesting because that's like a microcosm of like what it's like to just get through life. Like if you can't focus on the goal, on the task, and find out what it is you want to go after, but be able to filter out all the other noise, like you're left floundering around. And unfortunately, I think that's why there's such a epidemic of that in our global society, not just our country, that it's the one downside of the internet and social media is like, that idea of clickbait where like you're just like constantly clicking on like a topic and way to think and what's important and what you should be scared of and what you should think's funny and what
that's exactly what I've been struggling with lately, man. Exactly what I've been struggling with. And we all do, we're not, no one's perfect, it's just these minds that we got, just that's something that I feel like we need to evolve past in some way, is just how we easily fall in our into the dopamine rush.
Yeah. Well, and I think, that's where psychedelics play a part in that they're the meditation moments of our life, in that you stop and focus on life and what's in the important, what's now, like what you should be enjoying,
exactly.
You stop and look at the sunset or sit there and stare at a flower and look at the pollen and petals in it. And like you have this like intense focus visually, but it's also like you care about it. It's important at that point, to where if you weren't on the psychedelic at that time, you're caught up in the noise. You're not focusing on life that's all around you. And that's probably one reason why there's so many stories like we were talking about earlier of people calling up someone and having a bonding moment and stuff like that, is because you get so far down the road that you forget to make up with someone that mattered to you, that you had a tiff with or whatever. And then you have this psychedelic moment where you're bringing it back to the focus, and you're like, damn, I got to call that dude because I shouldn't still be mad at him, and I shouldn't have not talked to him in 3 years. And like, I need to call him, and so it's bringing it back to the now. It's bringing back in that focus. And, that's definitely one thing that psychedelics have done for me, and I think that they do for a majority of the people that we converse with on, on the Discord and stuff like that. It's fun to watch videos where people are talking about all the DMT alien encounters, and like it's cool to think about that, or if you've experienced it to experience it, but it always comes back to now, and dealing with that is what's important. And I think that's one thing that meditation really helped me with. And after having a lapse in it, it's a big difference I've seen in myself, of like, damn, I got to get back to that, where, I've been working with this guy that's super wound up and anxious and negative and toxic,
feeding your subconscious mind for you.
Right. And it took me like about 2 weeks where I was like feeding right into that with him. And I was like, yeah, this does suck. This company's fucking shit, and like everything that he was saying and feeling, I was like, yeah, man. Yeah, that sucks. Well,
yeah.
It took me about 2 weeks to stop and be like, wait a minute. I don't feel that. I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity, and just turned it around and like was aware that like his toxicity was feeding my subconscious, and then making me like nervous and anxious and hate the job. And then once I was just aware of that, I just like flipped a switch and started ignoring it, and just was like, oh, okay, actually this is good. Something's wrong with him, and that sucks. But I don't have to worry about him, and once I did that, I'm going to do I think my next video, because my last video was jumping into the abyss of like taking this job on. I'm going to do a longer video, kind of recounting all of that. So I won't go too far into it, but it did take that like kind of 2 week period until I was aware of what was going on. And I was like, actually, this company is pretty cool. This is a sweet gig. And he ended up quitting. Like,
did he?
Yeah, they offered him to stay on for another month. And like, he ended up quitting because he's like, I hate this company and they suck. And he's like trying to like tell me, I got offered to stay on full time. And, he was trying to get me to think that was stupid and I shouldn't do it and stuff like that, and it's just like, it took about 2 weeks for me to bring it back and focus on like, no, I'm grateful for this opportunity, like, and I attribute that to meditation, like teaching me to be aware.
Yeah, I can relate so much with that, like at work and stuff. Like you just spend, a good majority of your day around some toxic person and you'll be picking up their patterns within a week or two. Can't really do much about it. It's just whether or not you can either, be aware enough to see them arise and be like, oh, there's those patterns, or, you be succumb to them and they pull you in for a little while. I mean,
I've realized I've done that in a lot of different jobs. For a long time, I worked in like fast food and stuff like that. And if you want a dose of stupid, toxic, depressed people, like work a closing shift at a Wendy's. Like that's
oh shit.
It's like it's pretty bad. Where like and I realize there's a lot of like old coworkers that I may not even remember their names anymore, but like I can remember those situations where I was like, man, I got really down on myself and my station in life because I was just feeding into that, and it stopped me from being able to focus on getting past that. And having that awareness is pretty key to not fall back into the same. It's just like everything else. Like you're doomed to play the same story out until you learn the lesson, and you're not going to break that cycle unless you have the awareness. And I don't know what else. I mean, yes, psychedelics gave me that awareness, but it's that practice, that training of bringing back your focus that meditation does. And I don't know. I definitely need to get back to that. The good thing is with my job situation and that guy going home is like, now I'll be working by myself. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, I was meditating this summer because I had the house to myself, where I'm not going to do that now, but now I'll have a truck to myself. And like, if I can just find a good place to park, and that's my lunch break, is to go sit and meditate, in a park under a tree, sitting in the truck. Like, they'll just think I'm taking a nap or something like that. No one will bother me. And, I think that's how I'm going to get back to that structure and routine because, like I said, I feel it was more important for me than my structure and routine of exercising. Like just for your sense of reality and where you're going in life and focus and all that. So,
yeah, I find something that really has just been, I feel like the key for me is just the fact, like just taking that oath just to do it every day and never to miss, because when you start missing is when shit starts getting slippery, at least for me. Like, you'll start coming up with excuses, and that's just always when things start, it starts pulling you back, the voice in your head's like, no, you got to do this instead. And if you can just keep it every day, and at least 20 minutes or at least 15 minutes even, and just keep it every day. And as long as you sit, like, you don't have to get mad at yourself for like sitting there and thinking the whole time. As long as you sit the duration, you did it. You got to think of it like that, because the mind's just so tricky. It just always tries to, come up with excuses not to do it, but then also will try to guilt you. It'll come up with these, oh, you didn't even meditate that long, man. What the hell? Like, you just can't let that shit bother you, because the more you allow that stuff in, the more pull it has on you. It's like what Alan Watts says. You can't clear muddy water by, I don't know, I'm butchering this, but you can't clear muddy water by like, trying to walk, like rub it away with your hand. It just like, it makes it more muddy. And you know what I mean? The best way to clear it is just to leave it alone. That's how, like, that's the key. Is just to not let it pull you in like that, not let it flare up.
Yeah. Hakuna Matata, right?
But another thing I want to touch on was when we were talking about the toxic people, another thing that really helps me is just to realize that those people are just products of whatever their parents, whatever they were around in their parents and their environment, you know what I mean? And I know that kind of can cripple the view of free will, but like at the same time, it can add some compassion to it. You know what I mean? Just have compassion for people and just like, oh, that really helps me a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this guy that's my coworker, like, I didn't ask too much about it, but I mean, from what he told me, like, he had been divorced 2 times, and his girlfriend, he's like a 6-year-old guy too, and his girlfriend has been his girlfriend for like a decade, and they still don't live together. And he was like hooking up with chicks up here while we were on the road. And he doesn't like really talk to his brothers and sisters. He doesn't talk to his son. And he just has all these like close personal family and loved ones that he's not close with. And, talks about that, like, all women suck. All they'll do is, steal your stuff. They want your money, like all this. And it's like,
just has a lot of resentment. Sounds like,
right.
And just like, stuff he's not letting go of.
Well, I don't know, man. It's not just, it's like, I told him, I'm like, I know I'm not 60, but like, so far women have been pretty good to me, like I don't know, like I can't say. Yeah, I think you've had some bad experiences, and also I see an overriding thread in his personal relationships that, like, it's that kind of situation where, if everyone you think is, or if you think everyone's an asshole, you might need to look, because you might be the asshole, and like
Exactly. That's the whole ego game, man. The ego likes to point the finger at everybody else and never wants to look within itself.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. And I wanted to, I brought it up a couple times about unfortunately I brought it up and it was kind of sounded joking, where like he was like, he had the worst road rage I've ever seen of anyone. This complete narrative everywhere he was driving of like, oh, you're an idiot. Women can't drive, stuff like that. And like, yelling at people about turn signals and all this stuff. And it's like, what are you doing? And like a couple times I was like, have you ever tried meditating? And like, and then he thought it was just a joke, or he was like, oh yeah, I'm going vegan too, or something like that, or whatever. But like, I think that was a thing. Like, this guy had just let his ego just run out of control, running rampant for his entire life, until he was this 6-year-old grumpy ass man, And
yeah, man.
Yeah, and like you said, it's compassion, because like I started realizing that and being like, damn, because he had a lot of redeeming qualities. He was a very knowledgeable person. He was, I learned a lot from him, career wise, for sure. But yeah, how anxious and upset and mistrusting, and the negative view, or the filter that he viewed the world through was so negative that like I did reach that point of like feeling sorry for him, and trying to think if I could give him advice, but then also being realistic enough to know that like he's not gonna listen to anything I say. Like, I mean, it's unfortunately at some point you're too far gone. It's gonna take a ayahuasca ceremony or something to kick him out of that.
So true.
I think for men, I feel like for men especially, is super easy to fall in the trap of an ego.
I agree.
I don't know, if it's the media push of, the machismo, or like the macho man, or what it is, but it seems like it's such an issue with males. Like I there's buddies of mine from college that are stuck. Like, it sounds like your coworker's stuck in college, like his behavior, his speech, all of it sounds like he's stuck in college. And like, I even have some buddies that, fortunately I'm seeing their progression out of that. And I don't want to speak of myself highly, but it didn't seem like change was wanted when they graduated. And it's like, well, change happens regardless. It's just whether or not you're with it. And you could fight against it. And it seems like that's what that guy's fighting against. But it does, like, it's odd, but ego is such a term that men, I feel, deal with, especially. Like, I don't really hear it. Not saying it doesn't exist, the issues with ego in women. But whenever I'm talking about it, I feel like the message resonates definitely more with male, than female.
I think it's that need for control, and that it's that
very primal.
Yeah, well,
very like primal stuff.
It's that dominator culture that
yes.
Terrence McKenna talks about. That whether it's inherent, or it's just part of like the male DNA, or if it's just years and years of culture built up from primal times where there was a definite physical advantage where you ended up being the controlling one because you could overpower the other one. Our culture's been building since that point, but since before speech, and so it isn't until the last 50 years or whenever women were allowed to vote that there was a dramatic change in that control that males have over our culture. And it's been getting more and more equal since then. But I think that's just built into our ego. Our ego exists or is comprised of like everything we've been through, but it's also comprised of everything our human culture has been through. And males have that inherent need to control situations, and that's what the ego is all about control, you know.
And the one-upmanship. And I feel like it's not just, you know, biologically in us, but it doesn't help that here in the West how we all get conditioned, like, you know, the one-upmanship thing is like almost in everything, you know. It's like of course it's all in good sport too, you could look at it that way, but a lot of the time it just flares the ego up too much, you know. Like, for example, like sports, you know, like going through school, you know, Sarah got an A, Tommy got a B, you know, like just like this grading system, it just brainwashes us, and it just it flares it up more than it needs to be sometimes.
I think capitalism causes a lot of that too. You know, the idea that
the money,
a company always has to make more money every year, and people always have to make more money every year. And you can't just be happy in the position you have. You have to get a promotion because you have to make more money. You have to end up making more money than your parents made. And it's like all of that results in like you're trying to control what's happening to you at all times to make sure that narrative plays out. And
that's another quality is the unsatisfactoriness.
Yeah,
the ego is just never satisfied ever.
And that's the thing. Meditation brings us back to being aware of that. But I will say that's one thing that psychedelics kind of like broke, that is like, I don't require more. I require this. If that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
you need what you have, and you have what you need.
Yeah, I need right now, you know, like this is what I need. I value, I'm grateful for right now, because right now is not guaranteed, and there's no guarantee to be any more right nows. And that kind of like death component that you get from a bad trip, I think that's the positive part that comes out of that, is like, holy shit, I almost lost this. You know, and like
feeling that grateful.
I really like this, and this is important. And you spend so much time focused on then that you know, whether that's in the past or the future, and we don't focus on now, on this, and like there's no we want to control that, we want to make this something else, but like it's acceptance and awareness that lets us just kind of exist in the power of now.
Absolutely.
Or whatever, you know.
It's so simple but so hard. So simple but so hard sometimes.
Well, and our world now makes it so much harder. You know, the world is so fast, it's so cluttered, it's so hard to focus and be grateful and stop and smell the roses, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like it'd be a lot easier if you were surrounded by, you know, more like-minded people. Because, I mean, no matter how much I practice it, like I'll always come back to the practice. But like we were talking earlier, you get around those toxic people and you can't really avoid those situations sometimes. And you just get pulled right out of it, you know, and that's just like, that's been never ending for me for, you know, the past 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years I've been on the path. Is like, I've just kind of come to accept that, because there for a while that was giving me a resistance. Like, oh, I can't be around these people anymore. You know, you know, just can't escape it. It's just another pattern that comes along and goes away.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna ask you guys: have you guys ever dabbled in Tai Chi at all?
I have not. No.
No, but there's like a Tai Chi class that meets like in our community center when I was going to the gym, and I always wanted to go in there, but it was all old Asian people, and I was like, man, like it's the same reason I don't go to yoga classes and I do like videos, because like I don't know. It's that social anxiety I can't get over. Where like I know these old Asian people aren't going to care if I come in and do Tai Chi with them, but at the same token, it just I don't know, just look really weird, and I would be starting from square one when they do it every day, and like I can't
They'd
get
be
that.
schooling you.
Yeah, it looks odd. I mean, it looks just uh as peaceful and helping you focus and just be in that moment as anything else we talk about. And but yeah, I've never done it, but it looks really cool, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it could really help within mindfulness and
Yeah,
meditation practice, because it's almost like, a slow movement yoga in a way.
it
Like
is. Yeah, that's yeah.
it's like if you think about it, like each one, like you got the sitting, which is like the meditation, the sitting, you're practicing on focusing your mind in sitting, and then yoga, you're focusing on that same kind of, point within different poses. And then Tai Chi, you're trying to focus on that same kind of, really in your body, that feeling just really in your body while you're slowly moving. So if you like think about it, incorporating the three, you got the movement, you got the awkward poses, then you got the sitting. That then when you go out into, your life and doing the things that you do, you be able to easy access them, that meditation focus everywhere you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's all like the mindfulness of Tai Chi. It's it's a martial art, right? Like, isn't it a self defense thing? And like the whole idea is
I'm
if
not sure on it. Honestly, I didn't look really that deep into it. I watched a video on YouTube of this Asian guy. He's doing, he's just showing you like some basics that you could just practice. And like he just claims that it's really good for your health, like almost kind of like yoga, he claims that it's really good for joints and your back, and just people who,
yeah,
been in accidents and stuff like that. It's a good recovery thing that
yeah.
you can just do on your own. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, those are definitely the benefits that people get from it. But I think it's like development where it came from was like this idea of like it's a defensive martial art, and that you practice it very slow in a very mindful state, and that so whenever you need those moves, it's just without, like you said, without thinking, it's just like second nature,
Okay.
like you can't get harmed, like you're just going to be super defensive because you've been practicing this stuff in slow mo or whatever. Like I think that's what it's all about, but I may be mistaken. But uh, I mean, it definitely flexibility and mindfulness that come from it, whether or not it's to be used down the road in self defense or not, is
I think that there's a way to find like meditative state in most things that you do that you have a really strong passion to do.
I agree.
I just recently experienced this when I was making music, just like 2 days ago. First time really experiencing it, and I've always had a voice in my head telling me, which who knows what that is, but telling me, that I should be making music. And I've always had a strong desire since I was a kid to be a music producer. As a passion and hopefully as a career one day. But I finally got the equipment kind of to just get it going, and I dove in, and it was like the second full day of really sitting down and getting to work and just toying with sounds and building something. And it was incredible. The second day of doing it was when everything kind of blanked out and all the chatter and all that went away. And I worked on, just a 2-minute thing. It wasn't anything extreme. And I spent 2 hours doing it. But during the experience, it felt like I was navigating, I guess to put it in kind of like colorful terms, it felt like I was just navigating through this musical idea, picking sounds to make it a reality, and then creating it. And it was all just one streamlined thought, that had an ending point. And that's when I put the ribbon on and I said, that's when the song's done. But the coolest part about it was at the end of it, I looked at my phone for the first time in 2 hours of working on this, and I had like forgotten the phone existed, and I forgotten everything outside of that little world I created existed, and a ton of notifications and all that, and I was just like, whoa, like I haven't felt like the flow state like this, as it's often referred to, other than psychedelics, or you can reach it other ways as well, but I hadn't reached it uh since a psychedelic trip. So I was like, whoa, if this is not a reaffirmation that I need to keep doing this, then I don't know what is. And I think that once you find that passion in your life, or it doesn't have to be a sole passion, it could be multiple things. I think that the meditative state is easily accessible, when your heart's behind it, like fully.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just especially when it comes to just things to do with creativity. Like the more I meditate, and then the more, like actually meditate right, and then when I go to play drums, I can just get in that zone so much more easier, and it just flows out of me, and I don't know where it's coming from. Like, when you're just making stuff up on a fly, that's what I love. Just like that, that fascinates the shit out of me, man. It's just where is this shit coming from?
Yeah,
it's coming from literally nothing. Like, it's coming from a point of nothing, and that point of nothing is that meditative state, that just sheer focus.
Yeah.
But like, I really struggle on, I don't hear much people talk about this at all, but what really affects me negatively is how much screen time I have. I don't know if you guys notice this or not, but the more I stare at screens, the more I have trouble meditating. It's like a reversal meditation, it feels like sometimes. Like, I can, deal with it for an hour, but if you're like sitting at a screen for like, 3-4 hours, and you get that really weird feeling in your eyes, and just kind of your mind's way more chattery. It's like stimulating. It's very stimulating of your mind. That's what I feel like when I was telling you earlier, I've been really struggling to get back into my practice, is because like I got into video games again more. That was like something I used to do a lot of, and I took a break from it for a while, but I got back into it, which I still really enjoy them and stuff. But if it keeps pulling me, if it keeps enabling me from reaching these deeper states that alleviate my, my anxiety, and just allow me to be more present and happy, and make me do my job better, and help me be more creative better and stuff like that, then I'm like, right now I'm torn on just like not even doing that anymore, because it's almost pulling me out of my practice. You guys resonate with that at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's like the double whammy of like what I was saying about not having the time to meditate while I've been doing this job. Is on top of that, the job involves, I've been riding around shotgun in a truck with a laptop on my lap, mapping stuff.
Oh, yeah.
For 60 hours a week. I'm sitting there staring at a computer, fighting off car sickness, and everything, just like riding around in this car. And so it's like a double whammy, to where like I have way more screen time than, because that was part of like the daily routine I had set up for myself when I was unemployed. Was I had at least an hour of like, put your phone down to charge and get the fuck away from it and go outside. And that always turned into like 3 or 4 hours, or until, I needed to like check and see, what my wife wanted me to get at the grocery or whatever, like, I just wouldn't be near my phone. And I was a lot more creative. If not musically, I was, making YouTube videos, and like, I mean, I was just doing, creative things, and just being, more, in the now, more focused and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to everything I was doing, but screen free time of taking the dogs for a walk or doing whatever was key for like, oh, now I'm gonna walk around and look at those clouds up there, or look at that tree, you know, or whatever. And to where normally you would be walking around, walking the dogs, you know, looking on an article on your phone. And so it is such a problem. It's definitely a problem with kids, and it's something I try to, like, you know, limit with my own children. But what I also notice is like they have far less of a problem with it than we do.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it is, but like, so all the people that are worried about screen time are sitting there on their, like, if I go and take my kid on Mondays, we go to ninja class, and like, or I've noticed it basically everything I've taken my kids to is you look around and all the kids are doing fun, cool things, and all the parents are in a row on their phone.
Yeah.
You know, reading articles about how they should limit their kids' screen time, you know?
Yeah.
And like all the kids are over there going like, "Mommy, look at me, look what I'm doing," you know? And yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's something that we'll just adapt to, you know, hopefully. And
yeah,
you know, if you grow up with it,
hopefully.
then you'll learn how to deal with it at a younger age, and you know, it'll continue down the road. But I do think that when you're younger, you just have more energy, and which is obvious, but you know, you have more bandwidth. That energy is more bandwidth, or you have more opportunity to do things other than the screen time. As you get older, you know, maybe this is just with me, but as somebody that had no problem with like screen time as a younger, and I grew up with all of it, you know, now it's more of a thing because it's just such a distraction and something that you're devoting your limited energy to, that, you know, I can't devote it to other things, you know?
yeah.
Like, I think that's kind of what it is. But I do think that growing up with it definitely will help you adapt later on. But I see both sides of the coin, you know. I don't know. It's a sticky situation, but as somebody that doesn't have kids, you know, I don't deal with it yet.
Well, I think there's a major difference in what the content actually is of adult screen time and kid screen time. Like, my son, his screen time is Fortnite, like,
Yeah.
night and day. If he's not playing it, he's watching YouTube of people playing it, or making videos like dancing, like the guys that dance in it or whatever. and so that's not real. That's just a waste of time kind of nonsense. The problem is that, like, so much of what adult screen time in could be classified as brainwashing. You know, it's all politically and commercially motivated.
True, very true.
Just as equally nonsense. You know, but it's reality. It shapes our reality too much.
Yeah, and a lot of it is like fear mongering, fear tactics. But and actually, you know, before I go against it, the whole screen time thing, like, whenever I'm making music or, you know, making creative graphic design, websites, whatever I'm doing, you know, that technically is screen time, but you know, my energy, I feel like, is being put towards a creative output instead of just a lazy output of, you know, just viewing YouTube or video gaming or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's one of the biggest struggles of being a parent is the whole screen time thing right now.
I'm sure, man. I mean, as somebody, I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 16, or I don't even know, maybe 18. No, 16. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 16. And, you know, at the time, that the whole big thing was like buying minutes and buying text messages. So there was no internet or anything like that at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I in my vision future where I have kids someday, that's always something that pops up, is like, oh, I'm not gonna let them have an iPad until they're X, or I'm not gonna let them have a smartphone until they're X, you know?
Yeah. I just established kind of like a schedule, like about 3-4 months ago. I just don't let my daughter have any screens on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Okay.
And then that's mainly like on Saturdays. I'm more lenient in the winter time because I mean, like, what the hell else are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like when it
Hmm.
gets like I live here in Indiana up north, and it just there's only so much you can do. We try to, you know, go on a lot of family trips and get out of the house a lot to alleviate some of the cabin fever. But yeah, and then the days that I do allow her, I just allow her to watch either a movie, a few TV show episodes, or give her like an hour and a half to 2 hours on her little tablet that she's got. So that's just what I do personally. I don't feel the need to just eliminate it completely, because I think it does serve a purpose to an extent. It's just the fact that we're habitual creatures, just trying to establish some of the other side of the coin. Like, if I don't, she's just gonna watch stuff nonstop. So like if I have these limitations, then she can get used to doing other things too. So that's, I mean, I don't know. That's what we do. How about you, Ruben?
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask, have you tried any mindfulness like stuff with her? Like,
I've sat down with her once to try to get her.
yeah, well, like it's hard with kids, and I've done it, and it's just so hard to keep it up. It's hard to keep up your own practice with mindfulness and meditation, but it's even harder with 5-year-old, but it's pretty weird because like they're actually good at it.
I bet. Well, they don't have as much content in their head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like and my son likes doing the lotus pose, with your touching your middle finger and your thumb, and he'll sit there with just his eyes closed, and it's the most calm he'll ever be. And
That's
yeah,
hilarious.
and like I'll be like, I bet you can't meditate for 5 minutes, and you make it a competition, and he'll like sit there and do that. And every now and then I'll look over and like he'll be like peeking his eyes open, and then he'll like close his eyes, but he's not on a screen, and I'll kind of like break. I notice with my kids, we'll definitely do limits at least, um, if when the weather's bad, like it's kind of hard, they get extra, leniency with screens and stuff. But there's this break time, especially with my son playing Fortnite. There's like when you kick him off of that, there's like a 10-minute like where he comes back down and he's got like the shakes and withdrawals, and um
Yeah.
that's a good like transition thing. I'll be like, okay, screen's down in 5 minutes, and then we're gonna meditate, and I'll put on like a mindfulness, or what's the one I have? It's a loving kindness meditation for children, and and it's all about visualization, and it's about like picture this ball of loving kindness growing in your tummy, and then picture your parents that you love and send this loving kindness to them, and it's all over this nice music and birds chirping and stuff like that. And I'll kick them off their screens and have them like sit, and we sit across from each other. We have like a couple sectional couches in our living room, and we'll all sit on that and just get in a comfortable position, and I'll be like, we're doing this, and like you can't get up until this, I think it's a 20-minute thing or 15-minute thing. You can't get up until that's done, and then you can go outside and go see if your friends are doing anything. But it kind of stops that screen withdrawal they have from like snowballing into punching each other in the face and just being overall crazy dickheads, so like it helps. I don't do it nearly enough. Like I said, it's hard to keep your own routine in practice, but then if you're like responsible for two other kids, like it's pretty tough. But it sucks because it's like I've totally seen the benefit of it, and it's a goal of mine to like get them on that. And you I think the limiting screen time and video games and the way the internet and phones are coming at us, it's going to be hard to limit that and eradicate that from a kid's life. But I think we need to counteract it with mindfulness, just like we have to do with ourselves.
I agree. And that's so awesome that your kids are into that. That's so cool.
Yeah. And just to start that routine, even if it's once a month, it's not bad to do it that one time, it's like, I should just try to do it once a week, twice a week, like kind of build up that way. But it's just interesting because it sounds like it'd be stupid and hard to do, but honestly, they're better at it than adults are, I think. And it goes back to what I was talking about, where like they are more resilient to the screen world than we are,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And I mean, as for my daughter, like I said, I just tried to sit down with her once. She sat down for a little bit, and she'll say, just like, going with it and stuff. But she's so stubborn and hard headed that she's just like not really that into it right now. And I'm okay with that. I'm not forcing her, to do anything she doesn't want to do. But I have faith, and it's also a goal of mine as well, that just like once she goes more and more into going to school and out into the world and feeding her mind with all this technology and seeing that how anxious it's making her. I'm just hoping her seeing that shows the importance of it, or I can at least show her the how it kind of counteracts all that type of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just like everything else, man. We just got to chip away at it and
be optimistic.
Yeah. I think the little bit of mindfulness we can teach the younger generation, the better off the whole is going to be. And we're just starting to put those building blocks out there. And then, it's on us also to be the role models and to practice mindfulness, but also exhibit mindfulness. And I think our kids are more intuitive to that than we think they are. And, that's all you can do to be the change you want to see in the world,
Let's do it. Yep. Be the change. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's getting late, man. And I know you don't usually stay up very late, and I got to get up early. So, thanks for coming on, man. I think it was a good talk. And, like I said before at the start, thanks for being as active as you are on the Discord and the conversations we have and the links we post and stuff like that. It's really great. And, I'm glad to have you as part of the community, buddy.
Yeah, man. Appreciate everything. Shout out to everybody again. You guys have a good night.
As always, thank you for listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. Please don't forget to check out our Discord server to connect with our growing community. The link to join can be found in the description. And if you feel like donating to our channel to help us grow, a link to our Patreon can also be found in the description, as well as some cryptocurrency wallet addresses. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast or have any questions about these topics, please email helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. If you would like to leave a voicemail or a text message question for a future episode, Stan, what's that number again?
567-233-1335.
Okay, guys, thanks again. And until next time, let's help find the others.